Welcome to Inspiration Radio, Growth Principles for Humanity and Progress. Join us when we share information, wisdom, and ideas how to create an extraordinary future for us all. The future is open. We together decide what will be in it. Welcome to another, hopefully, inspiring episode. Normally, when I say be inspired, I'm so sure that everything is really inspiring and winspiring. But the today topic, I hope that it's not too much for you, because we will talk today about the coronavirus and especially about vaccinations, or better, the injuries after vaccination. What is spike protein doing in the body? So it's not about conspiracy theories. I'm interviewing a person, which I can say from Germany, one of the few, or maybe the only one, who really understands protein engineering. Dr. Sabine Stebel really studied, made her PhD in protein engineering. Very, very few people did that. So she has an expertise what it really means. And the founder and CEO of BioNTech wrote a book and explained what they did. And when she read this book, he said, oh, I guess he doesn't know what he's talking about. And she wrote a book, in German we say, once working with professionals. So, a little bit sarcastic, he says he is not a professional in protein engineering, but the stuff millions of people got in their body was done by so-called, in this way, non-professionals. And I can say, because I'm German and more close to German, at least there the government accepted that there are already millions of people officially having injury from vaccination, but nobody is really helping them. And it's really tough. Those people who are really in need, sick, and losing jobs, losing the money, and nobody is really helping and understanding from the government. So maybe that's why I say I hope it will be in the end inspiring for you to get more understanding what the virus is doing in your body when you had the vaccination, or maybe you be careful and understand other people who got it, because if they're sick, you're an employer and have employees who are sick, let's check if it is. And in the end, at least we give a glimpse and a little outlook what people can do to solve the problem. So listen carefully. Not easy always to understand. She is very fast and using, as she says, words not everybody understands, because protein engineer, what happens there really, she can't say, I can't talk it in middle class language, because it's a very special language we need to understand this. And that's why most politicians didn't understand what they're doing, but maybe also a lot of people in the pharmaceutical industry. And just recently, now this week, one of the big companies who produced the stuff was, took by themselves, they withdrew it from the market, and the EU said, we are not allowed, or you're not allowed to use it anymore, because now we accept that creates or created a lot of problems. But what and who is really taking care of the people? Listen carefully, and in the end, it's always hope in life if you really take the responsibility and care for yourself. Listen to Dr. Sabine Stebel. Welcome to another session where we talk about what does it mean, humanity and progress. And the idea is we are in progress and everything will be good in the future, but sometimes we have the feeling, oh, are we going backwards? And our health is maybe not so going back forwards or forwards. Like in the US, they say, oh, the young generation might die before the parents, how our lifestyle is, or we have too much chemicals in our system, or we have something in the system maybe after Corona what is not really beneficial for our health. I welcome once again Dr. Sabine Stebel. We just recently had a talk in German about her new book. In German is Einmal mit Profis arbeiten. I guess your book is not yet in English.
Nope.
We will just talk about the content a bit. It is just having the idea of, could we once work with professionals who just creating the stuff for the vaccinations. And just recently, one big company needed to pull back what they injected. So we got a very interesting feedback for the knowledge Sabine has, and we decided to have a talk in English as well, because a lot of people should know what this expert who studied protein engineering knows, and what a lot of people are not knowing or not really valuing enough in the process. So welcome again, Sabine. Very happy
Hello.
to talk about your experience. Let's start with, what is the book all about?
So Ugo Sahin, the founder and chief of BioNTech, wrote a book about how he invented and developed the Comirnaty jab. And he described everything in detail. So in the Nachwort in German, he wrote, yeah, we wanted to show science as exactly as it is possible, to show how science works. And the mainstream media loved that book, and how he described his invention. And I started to read it and saw this guy has no idea about protein engineering. So I did my PhD in protein engineering. I optimized a trimeric protein called chlorphenicol acetyltransferase. It's a thermal stable protein. And it has some parallels to the spike protein. So both proteins are trimers. So they consist of 3 subunits. And it seems they might both be thermostable. So there is one paper that shows that it might be that the spike protein is even more thermostable than my protein was. So trimeric proteins have some problems. The first thing is the subunits are not fixed. So it's like a dance. They change their partners. So if you are jabbed with different products, you have a hybrid spike from different subunits. This might be interesting for the immune system. And the subunits, so the trimers can aggregate to 2 times trimers, so hexamers, or nonamers, so 3 times a trimer. This is known from a Novavax paper. So they did some cryo-electron microscopy, and they saw that the proteins are aggregating to hexamers, nonamers, and trimers. I saw this with my protein, so you can sort these aggregates with a column on a HPLC by size. So I used a Cephadx 200 column, and they come down in 3 peaks. And if you take one of these peaks, they split up in 3 peaks. So this is a stable equilibrium. In nature, the spike protein is bound to the envelope of the virus. So it's stable. It's only a trimer and has a certain orientation which is fixed. After the jab, you have free spike, which can aggregate to hybrids. And as I told, hexamers and nonamers. So the antibodies that will be generated to these protein aggregates will be completely different than those that would be generated for the virus. And as we don't know what kind of antibodies are made by the body to these aggregates, we can't look for them because we can't look for something we don't know. So this is one mechanism for autoimmunity, because the spike protein is about 80% similar to human proteins. And this is called molecular mimicry. So it simulates parts of the human protein.
At least we could already realize, oh, there's a lot of wording that's, I would say, the normal listener and myself not really understanding.
So just ask, so I'll explain it easier.
Yeah.
I'll try to.
But there's a lot of knowledge in your brain. But when you said you read the book and then you had the idea, oh, he's maybe not really knowing what he's talking about.
Yeah.
We just want to believe that he is just a little bit ignorant or doesn't have the knowledge, and not the idea that he consciously wrote something what is not true. But why on earth, when he published a book, and the book is, I guess, worldwide, nobody else is really saying, hey, what are you talking about?
There are not many protein engineers. So this was fashionable 20 years ago. So there were some groups in the world trying to optimize proteins because normally you use that in industry to optimize the protein for washing detergent, for example, to follow temperatures or for chemical reactions. So there are molecules which are chiral, I think it is English. So they have a certain orientation. And if you do the chemical reaction the normal chemical way, you get a mixture. And you have more product in the right orientation if you use enzymes. But the enzymes have to work in the chemical environment of this reaction. So you have to optimize these enzymes. So these are very, very specialized areas where you need to optimize proteins, and the methods you use for that are patented. So it was Mexigen in the US, which had a patent on the gene shuffling technology. This meant that industry couldn't use these techniques we used at university. That's why those people who were educated in this area never got a job in that area, because these methods weren't used because they were patented.
Mm-hmm.
And in Germany, there were two labs, one in Bremen and one in Freiburg, which worked with these methods. The Bremen lab worked with chaperones, and I think they also used one of my protein mutants. And the lab in Freiburg, the Müller lab, and there were 3 people working on this topic. One is working with BioNTech now, and I don't think he understands what he's doing. Maybe he forgot what he did during his PhD, because otherwise, I don't know why he would work for this company.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think most people don't understand the problem, because protein folding is still not clear how it works. So there were groups working on that 10 years ago, but I haven't seen papers or reviews recently. I don't know if they are now retired, and these areas of science are not active at university at the moment. I don't know how the scene on protein engineering or protein folding is at the moment at universities. I don't think there is much going on. And there are not many people left who did that. So I can understand that nobody told us about that, because there are not many people left who did that in lab. So
okay,
yeah.
People don't know, and maybe they do something and have the best intention. Because they don't know, then okay, they can't implement the knowledge or whatever thing.
If you don't know that you don't know, how
Yeah.
should you know?
Yeah.
So They don't even know that they don't know.
That
That's
is
the
one.
problem.
Yeah, the one part is about also it's like you said, the guy worked there, another PhD, and then how could he forget? Um, I remember always the story of Semmelweis, who um, started to tell his doctors, wash your hands. And they thought he is crazy. And it took nearly 200 years that we understood it, or it makes maybe sense to wash hands and not carry all the bacteria. And now suddenly with the corona, we all got the idea. So we need to be and maybe put some other chemicals on the body, what might be not the best either. But it takes sometimes really time that the truth comes through, that new knowledge comes through. So what is hindering in the process? Like it sounds so important, these protein engineering, and especially now we think we have a global crisis and we need this, that nobody is really looking at it.
As you said, lots of strange words. So this is a very specialized area of biochemistry, which only few people are specialized in, and it's nothing you normally learn at university. Or you just heard about it in one or two lectures, and most people just don't want to invest that much energy to understand the problem. So I wrote a Substack on that problem, and the first part had quite some readers, but when it got specialized, most people, it was too hard for them. So if our people don't want to learn all these things, how do you expect those who are not interested to learn about that? So it's about equilibria, it's about life on the edge theory, folding theories. It's really lots of stuff you don't learn at school. So even we don't even know how proteins are produced from RNA. So if you go into the details, you normally learn one codon, so one of these three A, G, T, C, or U in case of mRNA is one amino acid. And this is encoded by an tRNA. So one codon, one tRNA, which is wrong. It's not one codon, one tRNA. There are some codons which have no tRNA of their own. So they are served by another tRNA. We don't know how and why. And this differs from organism to organism and from organ to organ. Problem number one. Then there are other tRNAs which are called isodecoders. We have no idea what they're doing. So step number one, we don't know how mRNA encodes proteins. Not even on the basic level, something you don't learn at school because they lie kind of to make it not so complicated for the students. But then this lie sticks, and then they believe we know how proteins are produced, which is just wrong. We don't even know the basics. And then they start to generate some mRNA, not knowing how this might have other things encoded in another level, like velocity of translation or folding. It's a 3D structure. mRNA isn't like a line, which is how they normally depict it. It's a 3D structure folded in space. And these folds encode information we don't understand.
There's this don't understanding, like it sounds in the book, that the BioNTech guy says, oh, there's a kind of convinced to be right. But the interesting part, or for me, the paradox is I'm not the health, chemical, or whatever specialist. Just try to use whatever I call my brain and work with common sense. When they made the contract, or the politicians made the contract, the EU made the contract with the pharma companies, there all the pharma companies were really clear that we have no experience, we don't know what it works, and we need to protect it if something goes wrong.
Yeah, so there are some scientists trying to find out how immunogenicity is generated by these products. These pathways have lots of question marks. We still don't know how these things work.
Yeah. But the politicians, later we said, well, I can mainly talk about the German, we say, culture, how we work with it. It was forcing people, even we were at the edge of really forcing physically everybody to get this injection and the vaccination. But in the contracts with the EU, it says, well, we are not sure if it's working. How can this? So is this more, let's say, besides the problem that they didn't know what they do maybe in detail, but when the pharmaceutical industry says we need to be protected, how can a government then force people to do? So is it more just a political thing? Is it just a business thing that it was so forced?
Do you read all pages in a contract if you have to sign something? Have read all the pages you sign if you get a new car or whatever contract? There are lots of pages. Nobody reads them in full.
Mm-hmm.
Point number one. The next one, they believe in this technology. If you read the book, they believe. And believe isn't rational. They believe it will go the right direction. They believe it will work. They believe they will save the world.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't understand, the only thing left to you is to believe. And most politicians are not biochemists, not geneticists. They maybe don't even have a proper job. So they have no other choice but to believe because they can't know and they can't understand. And those people who help them to understand may not be from the right scientific area. So maybe they have some economic guys to help them or some from the medical field, but they still don't understand genetics or biochemistry. They also have to believe what they are told.
Mm-hmm.
And they were told to believe that the pharmaceutical industry knows what they're doing because there are rules and there are regulators. So they have to trust.
Mm-hmm.
So they trust and believe.
Okay, let's go with this in the moment they're doing. But for me personally, it's also that we are living in a so-called democracy, and when the EU makes contracts, and then the members of the parliament wants to see the contract, everything is blacked out, and so how can that be in the parliament? And after we know now, and just recently from one of the company who produced the stuff, we know now that it's in every newspaper that it was not good and could harm people. And officially, also the German government already accepted that people with the injection and vaccination have problems because of it, but nobody really cares. So
yeah, it's even worse. So if you look at court, so there was a case yesterday with somebody who had a vaccine injury, which was even accepted by the Krankenkasse or whatever. So he had to prove it's a vaccine injury. It was official proof it's a vaccine injury. And the judge just said, well, I don't care. It still was less risky to take the jab than to get the virus. So bad luck for you. And he lost the case.
Mm-hmm.
So the lawyer then said, which jab did you get? Comirnaty? The judge said, that's none of your business. And the lawyer said, you're out.
Mm-hmm.
So this case isn't closed because the judge is, in German, it's befangen. I don't know what's in English. So he took the product himself, so he can't judge on the product.
Yeah.
And well, in this case, it was officially sealed that this is a jab injury. And this judge still didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
So there is no logic in that. You can prove everything, but if the one taking the decisions doesn't care, there is no justice.
Yeah, that is anyway thing like we have
Because
the saying
they believe
on
that
the
the
ocean
product,
and the sea and in court you're in God's hand.
yeah, they still believe that the product or
Mm,
work in most cases because they don't feel the injury yet,
mm.
or have a kind of injury that will kill them without them knowing they are dead.
Yeah, and here gives you a question when you say they don't feel it yet. That sounds that you believe everybody is somehow injured. Is this a question how intense is the injury, or you feel it not yet, but it will come?
So there's this Japanese paper where they put the jab in a PET scan with some sugar metabolism measurement, and they saw that every single one had a measurable defect on the
Mm,
heart.
mm,
And it's a Japanese paper showing that even a subclinical myocarditis, you didn't know that you had an injured heart, can kill you even if you're young.
mm,
Then there are these slow acting sickness or illnesses like autoimmune diseases take time to develop. So there are so many similarities between the spike protein and human proteins that it can take a few years to your immune system will start to attack what kind of organ, I don't know. So it could be any organ. The spike protein binds to ACE2. So there are lots of organs having ACE2 receptors. So these processes take time, and the body can heal a lot, but at some point it will be too much damage, and we don't know when this product will stop producing spike protein. It will stop at some point, but can take years. We don't know this N1 methylzuridine, how it will act on the protein synthesis in the cell. So it can be incorporated maybe into cellular mRNAs. Then these mRNAs will change their conformation in 3D space. And then the proteins produced by these mRNAs will be different, not working or whatever. So your proteins in the cell will not work anymore, and this will fasten your aging. You will age faster. We don't know. Nobody has long-term data. It's a great experiment on the human race. So most
Is it
animals died.
really experiment? An experiment, I would think they are interested in the result. They want to collect the data, but it looks
Yeah,
like
they
they're
do
not
collect the
really
data.
interested in getting all the data, what it's really doing.
They do collect the data. We just don't get the data. Do you remember the German SafeVac app? They
Mhm.
do collect the data. We don't get the data. Same with vSafe. They shoot and got the data. They see, they know a lot. They know all the detrimental effects of the product. They have a huge data collection. Just look in the PSUR3 data collection. Yeah, hundreds of pages of injuries. They know. They collect, but I don't know why they don't stop it.
Yeah, it can be, would say, intentionally, but maybe it's also like kind of what we see all over the world. And it's not just with this Corona topic, like we send men to war, people and women too, just soldiers to war. Like in Germany also, we were in Afghanistan, protecting something in Afghanistan. We don't know what the German army should do there really. And now people are really injured, from have traumas and coming back, and nobody really takes care. We have the world of criminals and the murder and all those who violating the law and hurting people. They get a lot of attention, and we need to understand them why they did it, but we are not looking at the victims. I could go in the best restaurants, wonderful service until I ordered the dessert. The moment I had the dessert, and they don't expect me to order more, service goes down. So is this maybe just simply we're not really interested in dealing with the problems?
Some people don't see the problem, I think,
Mm,
because they are jabbed themselves. So if they face the problem, they have to face, first of all, they did it too. They have the problem themselves.
yeah.
They might die from that problem.
Hmm.
And then they have to accept that they did something very stupid.
Yeah.
That's not good for your ego. You
Yeah.
have to be a very strong personality to accept that.
Yeah.
Many politicians might not be that strong. I think that's the problem. You have lots of people who took part in this, and it's partly also their fault. So they have to face their sins. And they have to accept they sinned. They sinned against a lot of people. And that's something you have to accept and be strong enough to accept and live with that. And I'm not sure if politicians are that emotionally strong
Yeah.
because they're even suing if they are called the right name. So Strack-Zimmermann lost lots of cases in the last days
Hmm.
because people called her out for what she is and what she did. And the only reaction she had was to sue those people, and then now she lost. So she has to face that those people told the truth. I don't think she will be able to learn from that, but maybe she will. And also, I think Habeck sued some journalist for telling something that's true, and he lost. It depends on the lawyer and the court. So maybe sometimes you lose even though you told the truth. Like one politician who posted a statistic about crime, which was correct, and she still got a fine of 6,000 euros for telling the truth.
Mm.
So it's not about truth, it's not about law, it's about ideology. And if when you're part of an ideology, you don't know that it's an ideology because this ideology is part of you.
Mm.
You only recognize an ideology if you're not part of this ideology. You
Yeah.
don't recognize your own ideology. That's the thing. You're always blind for your own ideology. And there is no way to think out of an ideology. Everyone has one. So we are the lucky ones. We are not part of the green whatever agenda ideology. So we see the faults of their thinking, but we don't see our own faults. So we have to be honest about that. We might also have some blank areas where we don't see we are
Yeah.
on the wrong path.
Yeah. Okay. Very understandable. And even the best intention, you somehow have all the blind spots and you need someone else. And like you said, the strong personality to listen to it and check it out. Coming
That's
back.
nothing special. You learn that in the first semester introduction to culture studies. Yeah. So this is basic knowledge. If you study some language, you normally are taught these things in the first semester.
Yeah, theoretically, we should have it in school already when we want to live in a democracy. We should learn that there are different views to the world and different opinions, and so that we can always first try to understand and then make our choices. But coming back to the corona world or the vaccinations and the problems, what can happen in the body or already happened. Because I don't know what's really the percentage, but I hear a lot of employers who say, "Oh, my people are more sick and everything." I had a doctor who says it's amazing what happens. Or after our talk in German, people from healthcare system. And now, thank you. We understand now what's happening here. We see so many things, and even the government says there are millions of people in Germany who have problems. What are if there is kind of saying the main problems or the normal problems which come up, or is it extremely individual?
So there are some basic mechanisms I'm writing about in my Substack. So there's one basic mechanism, which is thrombosis. I now found about, I think, 18 ways these products can lead to a thrombosis of different kinds of thrombosis. So it's not just one kind of thrombosis. There might be 3 types at the same time. So you will need 3 different kinds of blood thinners. So some doctors use 3 different kinds of blood thinners because they can't get rid of these clots. So if you have theoretically 18 mechanisms to generate 4 types or 5 types of thrombosis, you get all the sicknesses that are connected to thrombosis. So basics.
You need the kind of like 18 protection ideas?
No, it's just the double-stranded RNA can lead to thrombosis. The lipids can lead to thrombosis via the inflammasome. These things were lipid nanoparticles. Nanoparticles generate thrombosis because the size is the same like that of a virus. And it's just the size that leads to thrombosis because it's part of the innate immune system to clump invaders with blood to get rid of them. So if you inject lots of viruses, like in the adenovirus jabs or lipids, they will be attacked through thrombosis. The spike protein can lead to thrombosis because the spike activates different stuffs, and this can lead to thrombosis. Inflammation can lead to thrombosis. So these are just the basic, the detailed mechanisms of the papers can be found in my Substack. So we won't go into detail. So you can get all the symptoms which are related to thrombosis, like stroke, tinnitus, brain fogs, circulation is not really working. The lung, there's a thrombosis in the lung. You can die from thrombosis in the heart. You can lose limbs. You have worse oxygen transport in all the body, in all your body. So everything that's whatever, in what kind of way connected to a thrombosis can show up. It's one basic mechanism. Another basic mechanism is autoimmunity. So as I told, this is a trimeric protein, which is now free in your blood. So you can generate antibodies, which wouldn't be generated if this was bound to a capsid or the virus itself. Then you have the hexamers and nonamers. So you have lots of strange antibodies that can bind to unpredictable structures. Then you have the classical autoimmune reaction because the cells produce the protein. Parts of the protein are presented on MHC1. They are recognized by T cells and killed. This is a classical mechanism of autoimmunity. Every cell that produces the spike protein will be killed. Unfortunately, the product can end up in the liver. There it's repackaged into exosomes. And the mod RNA in the exosome can transfect every cell everywhere in the body. And then if exosome transports mRNA, this mRNA is decoded and the protein produced. That's what exosomes are for. That's what they normally do in the body. So every single cell everywhere in your body can start to produce spike protein and will be killed by T cells. The lipid nanoparticles and the exosomes go through every membrane. So the blood-brain barrier is no barrier. The spike protein can also go through the blood-brain barrier. It can go through the placenta barrier, though there are no limits. So even the fetus can be transfected, the placenta can be transfected, the brain can be transfected. So there was a paper a few days ago about, I think it was schizophrenia after the jab. So some part of the brain was maybe transfected and they started to see the strange things. You can also get vertigo. You can get blind because the part of the brain that's responsible for calculating what your eyes see is dead or somehow producing spikes. The part that's necessary for you to hear can be transfected, and then you don't hear, although your ears are still okay. So if some part of your brain is transfected, we can't predict the outcome. It could be schizophrenia. It could be that you just have brain fog because there's a constant inflammation. So the brain cells which produce spike will be attacked. You have a constant inflammation in your brain. Brain inflammation can lead to whatever problems. Your personality can change. There is no limit on symptoms. There is no limit on symptoms through autoimmunity because every cell in your body, everywhere, can be transfected over a year because these exosomes have a half-life of 60 to 80 days.
Now that means, because the recommendation was not one injection, more. So if you get one vaccination, it's a problem. But if you have a second and a third one, logically, it goes
more. Yeah, after the second or third, your immune system switches to another kind of antibodies. They are called IgG4. They induce tolerance. So that the body has learned, if I kill more of my own cells, this will be a really bad idea. So I decide to live longer if I don't attack myself, but the spike will kill me, which isn't better. So it will just go a bit slower while the spike induces thrombosis, inflammations, goes into the nucleus, inhibits p53, generates maybe cancer. So the spike can kill you in very many different ways, which are unpredictable. So that's why you have so many different sicknesses and illnesses showing up, and just ignore it. It's my handy.
That makes it so difficult for doctors or whatever who is looking at it to say, okay, this is a typical reaction. So like when you say, oh, can infect
it's a random distribution
liver,
throughout the body.
5 years later, I have a liver problem and nobody looks at where it comes from. He just has a liver problem.
Yeah, so there's a difference. Yeah, handy stopped. My smartphone just rang very loudly. The thing is, in liver, normally the autoimmune hepatitis is rarer than a normal hepatitis. So now we have more autoimmune hepatitis, which is strange. And
everybody is like my experience with a lot. I don't want to say something bad, but the normal, what we call house doctor, with a kind of everyday doctor, can they really see the difference? Do they see the difference? Do they look for it? My experience is
I don't think you need to see the difference because you have to treat it the traditional way.
Anyway, okay.
So there are some other ways you could go. I'm not a doctor, but there are some papers which show that some mushrooms might help. So like Huai, which is the Chinese traditional medicine. There are now, I think, 2 or 3 papers on the Huai that seems to make the cells better after vaccination. So this seems to work. We don't know how exactly, but these healing mushrooms seem to be an option, which is new for doctors, I think. And many of those mechanisms like autoimmunity are known. Yeah, so we have an autoimmune disease, so you have to treat it like an autoimmune disease. The new thing is that it dims down your immune system, maybe via toll-like receptor 7. So these 1-methylsuridine nucleotides were used to make sure that the product isn't attacked by the cell. But maybe now the cell is just not attacking viruses anymore because it's dimmed down by this nucleotide. Another possibility is that we have indications that immune cells are transfected and producing spike themselves. And if stem cells are transfected, you have a problem.
Yeah.
They are not attacked, so stem cells can be transfected without the immune system attacking them. But every cell stemming from these stem cells might then have the spike gene. And there's also these protein areas in the spike derived from HIV, so like GP120, which might lead to the spike hiding in CD4 cells, so killing them like in HIV. So there's so many mechanisms we don't understand yet. So we would really need to do, for example, chip analysis, so like RNA chips, DNA chips, protein chips, to have a rough overview about what's going on, which we don't have. So the best thing is to use established protocols like from FLCCC, which seem to work quite well. So methylene blue hinders the spike protein to bind to ACE2. There is in vitro data for that, and it's used by FLCCC. Methylene blue is easy to get, and so you can protect your ACE2 receptors with the substance, and you get more energy. And it's an easy remedy to dampen down some symptoms. But the thing is, we have to stop the production of the spike protein in the body. This will stop by itself over time, I think, because every gene therapy stopped at some point. But while the protein is produced, it will generate disease or problems.
Yeah.
So you have to clear the spike. So there are also protein protocols for that. For example, the McCullough protocol or FLCCC protocol. It depends on where the protein is hiding. If it's in the exosomes, you have a problem. If it's in the immune cells, you might need Maraviroc, which is an HIV medication to get rid of that spike protein. So it's complicated. We are trying different things. There are no really established protocols. Sometimes it works. For some people, it doesn't.
How is there a kind of network of doctors who really exchange their information, their observations? You recently talked on a kind of congress in Germany with others to teach doctors or other health professionals how to treat it. But it's not thousands of people are going there. It's just a very small number who really is open and have the interest to challenge their old beliefs and learn more.
So there is the Ärzte für Aufklärung, I think, in Germany. Walter Weber is in court now for actions like this. So they want to make an example of him. But this is a organization in Germany where doctors are organized and exchange their experiences. Then there are closed Telegram groups with doctors who exchange their experiences. Then there are these congresses where there are sometimes doctors still not believing what's going on, which are then roughly waked up during this conference. This was quite funny with a cardiologist last weekend. There's so much. I didn't teach them how to treat. I just showed them literature and what we know about how this protein looks like and how it distributes through the body, and what they didn't tell the EMA, for example, protein corona.
The first step is anyway that they get the awareness and the acceptance that there is a problem, because most don't see
some doctors see it, but the thing is, if you believe that the product saved people, it will always say it's post-COVID or long COVID because it was the bad virus. So if they really believe in the bad virus, it's hard to get that out of them. So they won't accept that the spike protein from the product is worse than the virus. Because in the virus, the spike protein is bound to the virus.
And that theoretically, I'm not an expert in this, but theoretically, if I look at the world, how different countries treated the problem different, then we should yeah, all easily accept, oh, the virus can't be that bad if there are some countries who treated it totally different and they survived.
Yeah, there was this ship, Diamond Princess, with lots of old people on them, and 0.3% died with being confined in one space, most of them old ages. So it was clear from the beginning, this is a normal virus, not deadlier than any virus before it. Ioannidis had papers which showed that. They don't even know how deadly the flu is. So if you go into the flu literature and look for infection fatality rate, then you'll see that they don't know the infection fatality rate of the common flu because they only know the case fatality rate of those people who end up in hospital and die there.
Yeah, we saw
So
at
we
the
have,
time also photos from it was California in front of the hospital. There were tents and
but
oh,
that's normal.
and then
That's
it was
normal.
2017, so it was just the flu.
Yeah, it's normal because they don't build huge hospitals. Why? Because they don't need these huge hospitals.
Yeah,
These tents are normal. In times of extreme sickness, they just get the tents out of the basement and extend their hospital. That's normal procedure as every year. So nothing special.
yeah.
That's not new. Yeah, and mostly it was old photos. Here they had some hospitals, I think in Berlin, they never used in the parks. I don't know why they panicked at the beginning, and it was a right-wing conspiracy theory. And then it got
Always bad. Any
mainstream.
news live from bad news, no? The media more from bad news, and you get the people to increase the rate of viewers. But when you said nothing really new and it's normal, did I get and I did understand you right? Which is before we started here, this session, you told me even the virus is not really new, even if everybody said it's a new virus.
No, I said, if you look in the old books, so like the Janeway first edition, there you find a chapter which tells you about old experiments from 1933, 36, I think. And this guy made experiments and looked if he confronted immune cells with chemicals which are not available in nature, would that generate antibodies? And he learned we can make antibodies against chemicals which are not in nature. So
Hmm.
something completely new.
Hmm.
So he deduced from that our repertoire of antibodies is unlimited. This means even if there is a new virus, it's no problem because we already have the antibodies, because the way antibodies are generated is a stochastical combinatorical way called VDJ recombination. So it's completely random how they are generated. Then they are checked for self-recognition. If they recognize self, they are destroyed. And so you have lots of random antibodies. And if there was some alien new virus, there would be some antibody binding through statistical, stochastical reasons.
Hmm.
So we don't have to care if there is a new virus, just ignore it. If it's the first contact, yes, it might be deadly.
Yeah.
But if a virus infects a cell, you normally have a mixture of viruses because they mutate fast. Those viruses which are less lethal will produce more offspring. That's the less lethal a virus is, the faster and the better he can generate offspring. So the more offspring you have, the higher your chances to survive. That means that every generation, the least lethal virus will survive and dominate. So the first contact might be more deadly or quite deadly, but with time, the virus will be tame and a normal flu.
There's also an interesting thing that where we look at, um, like we always now looked at the virus. So if I look back in history, we had a lot of diseases and 50% of the population died, and we focus what happened there, but we have not enough interest in understanding why did the others survive? What is it different? So like in the Corona time, everybody talks about vaccination, but not strengthening the immune system. So we are
Yeah.
looking at the wrong end.
Besides, viruses are more harmless than bacteria. So the immune system can cope very well with viruses,
Mm-hmm.
but bacteria are more problematic because, for example, tuberculosis bacteria have a wax coating. Antibodies can bind to wax. This is a problem. So bacteria are more dangerous than viruses.
Mm-hmm.
But bacteria are much easier to keep in check. So no problem there.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're bigger, they're easier to check. So even though some bacteria might be more dangerous and more lethal than viruses, they're easier to keep under control.
Mm-hmm.
While viruses are not, you can't keep a virus under control because there's this so-called virobiome, which is in the air and travels with the winds around the planet. So how do you want to control a virus which travels with the wind?
Mm-hmm.
This is not possible.
And the other part is what I see is, first of all, we don't trust nature. We don't trust the body. We always have the idea we need to interfere. And the other part is a lack of, I call it holistic view, like simply what we experience now with kids who were forced to wear the mask, not going to school, the long-term psychological problem we have. So there is also a big problem for society if millions of kids have a trauma and we don't see the whole thing or what really
Yeah,
was
that's how
painful
you're
for
taught at
me.
school. So
Hmm?
there are two ways to think. There's the top-down thinkers and there's the bottom-up thinkers.
Hmm?
So top-down means you start from details. That's how school works. You get a detail, you work with the detail without understanding the whole context. And then there are these bottom-up thinkers like me. They prefer the omics approach, so genomics, proteomics. Let's have a look about the rough complex system and then focus on small parts, but don't lose the whole thing out of view.
Yeah.
After school, and most kids start school as bottom-up thinkers. They see the whole, but not the parts. And then school starts to switch the thinking to details without knowing the whole. That's why I had problems at school, because if I didn't have the context, I couldn't work with the parts.
Hmm.
So I was really, really bad in the lower classes. It got better in the higher classes because I had more context and used the university books of my father to get the rest, so I could understand what they were telling me at school, because they always left stuff out.
Hmm.
But school teaches most people just to focus on details and ignore the whole, because normally you just need the details for what you're told to do.
Hmm.
You don't understand how the whole factory works if you don't only have to screw one screw into some hole. And so it's normal that most people make the switch to ignore the whole. There are some people who resist because they can't make the switch. I'm one of them. I can't just work with details. I always need the complete context. So if I start a new project or a new work, at the beginning, I'm much slower than the rest of the beginners, because I need to acquire much more information before I can start to work at all. At the end, I'm faster because I understand the complex system and I see the problems. And then I start to be a problem for the company because I understand there's a problem, this will not work in the long term. but they are only focused in short term, like politicians. They only have to think in time spaces of 4 years.
Maximum.
They
Yeah.
don't have, they don't have to think long term.
Mm-hmm.
One example is a professor for immunological for immunology, who lives in my village, and he worked all his life on B cells. B cells produce antibodies. He got the jab. He was really happy about his antibody titer. I told him, you know that viruses are killed by T cells, not B cells. He was a bit angry with me and thought I was stupid. Because T cells were not his focus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. If you don't have a rough overview over the whole system, you don't have to understand the whole the whole immune system. It's impossible with all these interleukins and stuff. But you should have the rough overview of what they told you at school. That's enough to see that some things won't work.
Mm-hmm.
Gene therapy will never work, because if you're born with a gene missing and they substitute that gene, the body will recognize it as foreign. So immune therapy can only work in stem cells because they are not attacked by the immune system. They have a carte blanche. All other cells will be destroyed. So gene therapy will never work besides if you just transfect stem cells.
Mm-hmm.
So for some blood problems, if you have the right stem cells transfected, this might work so that you produce the missing part of the blood, but every other stem cell is doomed to fail. So as every other gene therapy is doomed to fail.
Mm-hmm.
So just finish it. It will not work. So you saw a few days ago a child died in a gene therapy experiment of Pfizer, was some muscle disease, Duchenne, whatever disease. This child is missing a gene. The body never learned to accept that protein. If you now substitute that protein, the cell will be killed. Point. No discussion
we
there.
talked a lot about problems now, and I guess we have enough awareness at the moment for, oh, there is a problem. So there are a lot of people now, millions of people who got the vaccination. What do you suggest they should do?
First of all, it's not a vaccination, it's a gene therapy. So first of all, check where your problem is. In Germany, we have a lab where you can send in blood. So we see if we have still spike in the blood or in the exosomes, if the gene is in the immune cells, so we can check where the problem is. I don't know if you have labs in your countries which do that. If you know where the problem is, if it's in the immune cells, I think they use Measurable to get them out. If it's in the blood, there is a McCulloch protocol. If it's in the cells and the exosomes, it's a problem. Exosomes are really hard to destroy. You have to do constant spike clearance and hope for the best that it stops. Autoimmune disease is a problem. I don't know how to stop that. There is the normal therapy for autoimmune diseases. Use healing mushrooms. There are normal supplements that might also help. But I'm not a doctor. I can't advise you. Most doctors maybe won't help you, so it's trial and error.
Well,
your health is now in your own hands. You have to decide what you do. Don't trust the doctors. You feel if something works or doesn't. Most of the stuff I named is, besides Measurable, is just normal supplement you can get online. Try different things. Everybody is different. What works for you might not work for your neighbor.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Yes, it's like you talked with the guy in your village. He studied his life long this cell, but not the T cell or whatever. And a lot of doctors in a routine. So
they just learned by heart. I was a sales representative for pharmaceutical industry for 2 years. And there were about, from my 200 doctors, there were 10 who understood how this medication worked. The others just told me, tell me what I have to check, how I have to use it, on what I have to click to get it paid.
Yeah.
So they don't understand, they just learn by heart without knowing what they're doing.
Yeah.
And that's why this happened. They got the data from the pharmaceutical industry, they learned it by heart, they did what they were told.
Yeah.
And they still don't understand what they did.
Yeah, but that is, just to make sure for the listener, it's not about here blaming doctors. I was a lawyer and somehow the same thing. After the examen, I had my sign at the door and had clients. Yeah, for a while, I thought I know it all and don't need to learn more. And in the Millionaire Spirit book, I recommended if you want to have an advisor, is it health, is it taxes, is it law, look for a kind of 4%er. 4%er means we have the 20/80 rule. And in general, 80% of every profession is average or below. So, and if you look to the other 20% and make a 20/80 rule out of it, it's just simply 4/16/80. So how to,
Chances are good the 4%er is the one unemployed.
yeah,
Because they normally spell trouble for the company and
yes.
then
Yeah, or they,
contract
like you
doesn't
said,
renew it.
these are the very good lawyers who really dare to challenge also the judge or whatever. But I go to a doctor now, like I says, and we have the symptoms. Do you have, we talk also the top-down and bottom-up thinker, how to ask or how to find out, is my doctor a bottom-up thinker?
I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
Most don't know themselves. So I recognized it by accident in a lecture about proteomics.
Mm-hmm.
And the professor asked, what is the normal way to tackle the protein network problem? Protein by protein and looking what binds to what, or an omics approach. And I was the only one saying the omics approach.
Mm-hmm.
All other in the room said protein by protein. So that was the moment I realized I think in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have such a moment, you don't know that your way to think is the other way around. You only know you are constantly in trouble because people don't understand what you're saying, because the range of your thinking is beyond their scope.
Mm-hmm.
And there are not many people left after school who think that way.
Yeah, school is more training you on to have the right answer, not the right question.
It's also about turning your thinking into detailed thinking and
Yeah.
ignoring the whole. I think this is part of the system to get rid of people like me.
So we have two parts. One is the patient or client or whatever, feeling the responsibility. I want to take care of myself. Okay, I need some specialists maybe, but I'm still responsible about my life.
So
And
the easiest way is get the literature. For example, you get the recipe by FLCCC. So
Mhm,
there are these protocols.
mhm,
They also have the literature, I think, referenced. Then there's the McCullough protocol. Read the paper and start to do your own research.
mhm,
Then you will see what might work for you. As in Germany, you can go to your doctor, give blood, and say, I want to have this MMD test, this test in the lab. Please check spike protein, whatever. And when the results come back and he sees that you still have spike protein in your blood 2 years after the jab, he might start to think
yes,
that there might be a problem because this shouldn't be.
yeah,
So you might wake up your doctor by that.
yeah.
This doesn't mean that he will understand the problem and know how to treat you.
No, but that's the first step. If the doctor really ready to talk with you and understanding there might be a problem and helping you to figure it out is and I learned to ask different questions to test if I can talk with him about different questions, different views, or no, it is like it is. Then you know.
So those who can think for themselves didn't jab from the beginning. I think this is a good indicator.
Yes.
Those who didn't jab, go to them.
Hmm.
They knew from the beginning.
Yes, and that means also go to them means maybe they're not in your town. Learn to find the expert for your life, not just who is close by. That is not the main point to make the decision. So always go, what is for my highest value? What is the best? Either really working for my best, but that is the responsibility of every individual to ask this question and really wanting it. Not like I experience also a lot of people when we offered something what is really helpful and healthy. Oh, is the insurance paying it? If not, no, then I don't want it. So then
Well,
you,
the thing is, most of the stuff will not be paid by the insurance because
yes,
it's supplementaries. You have to buy them for yourself, so you can get them without problem. You don't need a doctor for that to try them.
yes. And that is what you really need to be responsible. And then comes, okay, I don't have the money. Okay, then you're responsible also to make enough money and not be just dependent on
Yeah, the problem is some
about
of
you.
these people are so sick they can't make money anymore. So that's the
Well,
problem.
yeah, but then at least you have the responsibility to find the network. Or if I'm really sick, okay, then you can't
Yeah,
do.
find a self-help group or whatever they call it in English.
Yeah,
They normally share medications also among
yeah.
themselves. So
Mm.
for the Maraviroc therapy, a doctor last weekend told me you don't need the full package.
Hmm.
So they normally share between two one
Yeah.
package. It's sometimes cheaper to get the stuff in France. Not in Germany, some medications is much more expensive than in France.
Hmm.
So I live near the French border, so we can take a German prescription and buy your stuff in France. So for us, it's easier. It's also much cheaper. Um, Maybe you can order from France also online. It's cheaper. It's a problem if you're from UK. Well, then you are not part of the EU. It's not so easy to buy in France.
Where you have an
Bad
idea
luck.
to find best so self-help groups or doctors network, like you mentioned on Telegram, but uh, what should I look for?
In Germany, we have this MGVFD. They
Hmm.
have a hotline. You can call them,
Hmm.
and they can tell you who in their network is nearby you. So
Hmm.
for Germany, I don't know if there is something like this in other countries.
Hmm. Okay, but I guess there is. So just search and be open, or put it somewhere out, question, and I guess the answer
Just
will.
talk. Just talk about it with your neighbors.
Yeah,
They maybe just wait for somebody to bring up the topic because they're afraid to do it themselves.
yeah. Sabine, thank you for today. I guess we could cover where problems are and at least give a glimpse where solutions are.
There
And
will be a longer interview for Neuroflix, which will get subtitles, I think. There we go through all the mechanisms.
yeah, super. We can post it then as well.
He's still suffering with all the papers he has to cut into the interview.
Be quite sure that here on the UK Health radio platform, this interview will stay for a while. When we put it on YouTube, we're still today not knowing uh, if the censor is coming and that will be taken away. We don't know. But we keep on sharing the message, and everybody, please wake up. Whatever happened, there is a future. It can be a bright future, but only if you take the responsibility for yourself. In this way, be inspired, and yeah, the best is yet to come. Sabine, thank you very much once again.
You're welcome.